and welcome to our Junior Achievement Volunteer video. This is Back in My Day, or How School Has Changed, Tips for Volunteers in the Modern Classroom. In this video, we're going to take a look first at the differences between school as we remember it and school the way you'll see it today. Then we'll talk about some differences between the students we remember and the students you'll encounter in today's schools. And finally, you'll see some good ways to utilize your best resource when navigating unfamiliar territory like this, the teacher. Now let's start by taking a walk down memory lane. Do you remember when classrooms looked something like this? Or maybe it was more like this for you. Aside from a visible lack of diversity, you might remember some of these characteristics. Desks were in neat rows. Behavior was strictly controlled. Students had very little freedom outside of the teacher's instructions. Individual work was emphasized and students were graded individually. The classroom was usually pretty quiet and orderly and very low tech. Books, pencils, paper, maybe a chalkboard, maybe some overhead projector every now and then. That's about all we had. If this is the kind of classroom you remember, you may be surprised to find a very different kind of classroom when you go in to do your JA program. A typical elementary school classroom now looks something like this. One thing you're likely to see in classrooms these days is tables for students or desks grouped in clusters. Some middle and high school classrooms do have desks in rows, but nowadays these very often are moved around in the course of a class period in different configurations. Those clusters again, maybe a circle or a semicircle. You'll also see a bit wider latitude of behavior control. There are still rules. Students are still expected to behave appropriately, but they do have a little more leeway now than we may have had at their age. There's going to be more group work and collaboration in the classroom. Individual work is still important, but it is much more common to see group projects and activities, and students may be more concerned with what other students are doing than you may remember. The classroom may at times seem to be rather noisy and chaotic, especially when students are doing group activities. Teachers are prepared for this. They have ways to get control and attention back when they need to. And different teachers have different levels of tolerance for noise and chaos, as do volunteers, of course. Work out with the teacher what levels are okay with each of you. Classrooms are much more high-tech these days. In fact, this is worth spending a little more time on. One big difference is that you're not likely to find so many chalkboards in classrooms anymore. There are whiteboards, but nowadays more and more classrooms in our area have smart boards. We're hoping to have a chance to provide specific training on smart boards in the future, but for now your best bet is to ask the teacher for help if you want to use a smart board. You can write on it just like you would on a whiteboard, or you can connect it to a computer and show content. Either way, the board has to be set up for however you're going to use it, so check with the teacher on that. And in addition to smart boards, there are lots of other technological advances in modern classrooms. Things like projectors, remote video conferencing, and all kinds of computers, from desktops and laptops to tablet computers, just to name a few. The thing to remember here is that rapid change is the norm. Technology continues to change at a very fast pace, and you can expect to see more and more new things in classrooms as time goes on. Of course, not only schools and classrooms have changed, let's take a look now at how students have changed. There was a time when students were expected to be quiet and listen to the teacher all day long if necessary. Students were expected to stay in their seats at all times, getting up only when instructed or with specific permission. And remember, those seats were in neat rows with space between them. Students worked individually. They were expected to focus on their own work and leave other students alone. If this is what you remember, be prepared for something a bit different when you go into today's classrooms. You're likely to see something that looks more like this. You'll find that today's students will sit and listen to you for a while, but not for more than a couple of minutes before you start to lose their attention. They really expect to actively participate in their learning. JA programs are designed for this, so take advantage of the engaging activities as early in your session as possible. They expect to get up and move often. In some classes, students are allowed to stand at their desks if they're tired of sitting. Some are allowed to get up without asking, to get water or sharpen a pencil. Take advantage of opportunities in the program to get students out of their chairs and moving around. A big difference in modern students is that they expect to collaborate in their work with other students. Even when they're working individually, they take an interest in other students' work. They make comments or offer suggestions. Usually these are very positive and supportive comments, but of course, harsh criticisms or rude remarks are not allowed. There are a couple of things in particular that you'll need to know when you go in to do your JA program. First, nowadays, students with special needs are mainstreamed into regular classrooms. This means there's a fairly good chance that your class will include some students with physical or developmental limitations, such as maybe a student confined to a wheelchair or developmentally delayed. You may see students with social or emotional issues, and you may see English language learners. In fact, there are all kinds of special needs you may find in a typical classroom. They all require special handling of some kind, but some of these students will have an aide in the classroom with them. The aide or the teacher can help you understand how best to work with the students. One other thing we've noticed recently in our sessions is that some students have a hard time understanding how to play board games. Many JA programs include board games as part of their activities, but lately we found that some students are having trouble with them. In particular, they don't know how to take turns, they don't know how to follow rules, and they don't know how to keep score. We think this may be because at home they're more likely to be playing video games, where they're either playing alone or if they play with someone else, they're playing at the same time rather than taking turns. The rules are enforced automatically by the game, so they don't have to be aware of the rules or take personal responsibility for following them. And the game keeps score for them, so they're not used to doing that either. What this means is just that you may need to take special care to thoroughly explain how the game works and what the students need to do with the materials. To navigate all of the changes you'll see in a modern classroom, there's one resource that will be extremely helpful to you, and that is, of course, the teacher. The teacher of your assigned class will know all the specifics of everything we've just talked about and can help you prepare for a wonderful experience doing your JA program. By law, the teacher should be staying in the classroom while you're there. This can be a big help with maintaining discipline, of course, but it also helps for you to get as much information in advance as possible, so you can be prepared for the classroom and the students you'll be spending time with. Be sure to ask the teacher any questions you have about the class. And here are some suggestions. What are the rules of your classroom? You might want to know, for example, if they're expected to ask permission to get up. And if they ask you, can you say yes, or do you need to defer to the teacher? Be sure to know how they're expected to behave and what they're allowed and not allowed to do. As we've discussed in this video, things have changed enough that you probably can't make assumptions based on your own school experience. Are there hand signals? Some classes have a system of hand signals that streamlines the process of asking permission for things during class. For example, a student may hold up crossed fingers to ask permission to use the bathroom. Then you can nod or gesture to give your permission and continue the session with minimal disruption. So find out from the teacher if there are any of these signals in use in the class you'll be working with. You might want to ask the teacher about ways to bring attention back to you when students have been working independently or in groups, or when the noise and chaos just get a little beyond the level you're comfortable with. Especially in elementary grades, classes usually have some kind of call and response method of getting attention. For example, one teacher we know says, "Class, class, class," and the students respond, "Yes, yes, yes." By the time they've completed that little ritual, their attention is back to the teacher for whatever comes next. Be sure to ask whether there's something like this that the teacher uses. Anything the students are used to should work for you, too. You should certainly ask about students with special needs and how you can work with them most effectively. Don't be concerned, though, if you have trouble interacting with special needs students. The teacher and aides can help them along in the program if necessary. Ask the teacher about grouping students. Many JA programs include activities in which you divide the class into groups, and in some classes, certain students work best with certain other students, or perhaps without certain other students. The teacher will know the best way to group them, so ask for help with this. Ask about the technology in the classroom. Some parts of the JA programs call for writing things on the board, like your name and certain vocabulary words. If there's a smart board and you'd like to use it, ask the teacher to help you set it up to do what you need. The students are probably pretty good with it too, and they can help you with a few things during your sessions. The important thing to remember here is that speaking with the teacher before beginning your program can be very helpful. Because classrooms and students are so different from how they were when we were in school, you can really benefit from the teacher's knowledge about the class you're about to visit. Here's a quick recap of what we've talked about in this video. First, we looked at the differences between school and classrooms as we might remember them and as they typically are in our area now. In particular, you'll see a higher level of technology in today's classrooms. Then we talked about the differences between students as we remember them and students now. In particular, we noted that many classes may include special needs students who will need special help, and we noted that you'll need to explain very thoroughly how to play the board games in your program because many students are just not familiar with them. Finally, remember that the teacher of your assigned class is your best resource for information that can help you be prepared to deliver your JA program. At Junior Achievement, we depend on hundreds of volunteers every year. We really appreciate your efforts and look forward to working with you. You can download a reminder sheet that outlines the information in this video by clicking this link down here. And as always, please contact us with any questions you may have. Thanks, and have a great JA program.